I committed to Ashbridge Solutions for 8 years, which included 8 early mornings. I was their top system, so they missed birthdays and holidays and stayed up late. When everything was on fire, they called me the architect, and I always managed to put out the fire. But all I received in exchange on a soggy Wednesday afternoon was a chilly smile and 6 words that I'm Tessa Monroe, and everything has changed. Your skills are no longer required. Is the tale of how they attempted to destroy me and how I ensured that the world would always remember me. Instead, it started like on any other day. I would have reviewed the most recent Nexus Core AI-driven operations integration reports in the morning. Platform that I had created from the ground up was at last stable, clever, and days, months of restless. Nights had been spent perfecting every line of code prior to its investor debut. This was more than simply a product. It was my legacy. At approximately 3:15 p.m., I got an email indicating that there is an urgent meeting with Charles, the CEO, and Human Resources. My chest constricted when I saw the subject line without any context, took my laptop and proceeded. Down the glass corridor to my left, where the development lab was still humming softly, servers that I constructed and set up to run our core, turning to my right. I went by the framed pictures of the company's achievements, each of which featured Charles. Even though I had been there for each and every one of them, none of them included me. Strolled into the meeting room, where Charles was seated at the head of the table, his eyes shining with the something that only a man who believes he has won something may wear next to him. Tessa Charles started acting as though he was sitting next to Margaret from HR, but she didn't glance at me, reading from a script. We value your contributions, but we've made the decision to take the business in a new direction, and as of right now, your function is being dissolved with no notice or appreciation. Just corporate speak on top of treachery. Maintained my face motionless, since I had long since discovered that people are more uneasy in silence. Then naturally, I asked equitably, "Would you like my laptop?" Margaret blinked. Charles, taken aback by my composed affirmation, nodded contentedly. That would be perfect. I set it down lightly on the table and stood there. 2 security officers were already outside the door, waiting as I turned to Charles one more time and said, "Good luck with the investor meeting tomorrow," with a slight smile on my face. With a raised eyebrow, he said, "Without me? We'll manage." I grinned more broadly. I hope so. I saw Charles vanish behind the elevator doors as they closed, brushed steel, after which the countdown started, and the system failed in 9 minutes. He was unaware that Nexus Core has an integrated integrity failsafe that would only activate if my credentials were eliminated as a last line of protection for the system, not to destroy it, but to safeguard it, since I discovered the hard way that external attacks aren't the most significant risks. Instead, they originate internally from individuals such as Charles, who grin while taking 6 months ago, while no one was around. I detected odd server pings. What isn't theirs was meant to be logged in, yet I tracked down files being copied and logs being changed. Returning to an account associated with Charles's executive assistant, I remained silent and began constructing an imperceptible security system. Something that no one else could see, much less comprehend, was a shell around the fundamental system. It wasn't sabotage. Insurance. They believed they were excluding me, but in reality, they were excluding the only individual who knew how Nexus Core did a great job. When the elevator opened into the foyer, I left with just one piece of cardboard box. Pictures, a USB disk that contained nothing, and a potted plant they would expect. But they had everything they needed, and I wasn't even upset. Shocked because betrayal doesn't hurt as much when you've anticipated it. Outdoors, the sky has grown darker, reflecting the raging turmoil within Ashbridge Solutions, and as they celebrated their fleeting triumph, 9 minutes passed upstairs before they realized they had actually lost the architect, the intellect, and the 9 minutes was all it took for the one who constructed everything and the only person capable of fixing what was about to break. Critical authentication error was recorded by the system in minute 1. At minute 6, the dashboard began to overflow as three internal processes started to loop. Nexus Core's AI identified several subsystems as having anomalies. Every engineer's screen displayed flashing unstable red warning lights, and by minute 9, the platform crashed. Not just any crash, but a meltdown that left even the most courageous IT leaders paralyzed. The following morning, horror investors were supposed to see the demo, but the system was completely broken, and there was no obvious way to get it back online. I visualized Charles's smile disappearing the instant he realized what had happened. Confront the way the appearance of control crumbled, but I was not present to witness it. Instead, I pretended that nothing had happened to the TV while I sipped chamomile tea on the couch in my tiny flat, played a reality dating show that I hardly watched, allowing the background noise to fill the quiet as I gazed at. Nothing was on my phone yet. Then, at precisely 5:12 p.m., it rang an unknown number. Figured it would be Tessa, but a hurried voice said, "It's me." One of the few individuals in the organization who I truly liked was Eli Ash's lead systems engineer. "Charles, the system is entirely down. I didn't tell you this. They're panicking out and believe it's sabotage," so I grinned. "What do you think, Eli?" "I believe Charles is finally realizing what happens when you do that because you created something too intelligent to be treated that way. He hesitated before calling you, but he decided to burn the person who keeps everything together." Murmured. Softly, "They need you." And 10 minutes later, he was correct. Rachel Charles's assistant answered the phone once more and said, "Charles would want." Her voice was abnormally tense as she said, "I need to talk to you because an automobile will." I almost chuckled when I said, "Tell him I'm busy." "And he was sent to come get you in an hour." Paused and said, "Tessa, please. Maybe tomorrow." That kindly told me that they weren't merely inconvenienced. They were afraid that Nexus Core was more than simply a product. It was the whole basis of their future, was valued by their investor, but it was now broken. Unusable, I got up and went to my desk, opening a tiny drawer that contained a stylish black USB drive. See what Charles and the board have to say about stability rather than sabotage. The fact that Nexus Core was developed with ethical standards and wasn't just another piece of software was never understood. Dynamic intelligence that can evolve, but only with the help of trusted, approved inputs that I've embedded deep within the Core Trust. A central logic framework requires